My neighbor built a fence 6 inches onto my property and dared me to prove it. What he didn't know was that I'd been keeping records on him for 3 years. And a fence was the least interesting thing in that file. I'm Carol Hutchins, 47, a middle school librarian in Baton Rouge. I bought my house in 2019 after my mother passed a small craftsman on a corner lot with a wide side yard that gets afternoon sun, which was the whole reason I wanted it. My neighbor to the west, Dale Pruitt, had lived next door for 11 years before I arrived. He made his feelings about new neighbors clear within the first week by parking his truck halfway across my driveway while I was unloading moving boxes, then staring at me from his porch when I asked him to move it. Over 3 years, Dale filed noise complaints on days I wasn't home, called code enforcement twice about my shed, which met every dimension requirement, confirmed by 2 separate inspectors, and let his dog run through my flower beds while telling me they were closer to the property line than I thought. I documented every date, every inspector, every complaint. I didn't know yet why I was doing it. I just knew something was off about the consistency of it. In March, I came home on a Friday afternoon to find a newly constructed 6-foot privacy fence running the full length of our shared property line, except it wasn't on the property line. It was 6 inches onto my side, absorbing a strip of my yard that included 3 established rose bushes my mother had given me cuttings from before she died, now sitting on the wrong side of Dale's fence. I called the parish surveyor's office Monday. A licensed surveyor named Patrick Odom came out Wednesday, confirmed the encroachment against the original plat, and gave me a signed, stamped document proving the fence was 6 inches over the boundary across the full 42 feet of our shared side. Dale shrugged when I brought it to him. Surveys aren't always exact. He'd already poured concrete footings. He wasn't moving anything. I took Patrick's survey to a property attorney named James Ellison. James confirmed the encroachment gave me grounds to demand removal and file for damages, but he also flagged something I hadn't noticed yet. Dale's fence permit application, filed with the parish before construction, listed boundary line coordinates. The coordinates he'd submitted were wrong. Not by accident, because the correct coordinates were on the same parish plat Dale would have had to reference to file the application at all. He'd knowingly submitted false coordinates to get a permit for a fence he knew was crossing the line. Filing false information on a permit application isn't a civil matter. It's a parish code violation with its own penalties, entirely separate from anything I was pursuing in court. That changed everything about how I approached what came next. I went back through my records and pulled the parish complaint history. Dale had filed the same rotation of complaints against his previous neighbor, a retired couple named the Beaumonts, who'd sold and moved away in 2018, the year before I arrived. I called their forwarding address. Margaret Beaumont picked up on the second ring. Dale Pruitt, I said. And she exhaled like she'd been waiting for someone to say that name to her for years. The Beaumonts had sold 3 years earlier than planned. Dale had redirected his downspout toward their foundation, something they'd spent 2 years tracing back to him, confirmed by their foundation repair contractor in writing. They'd never pursued it legally because, by the time they understood everything, they'd already left and just wanted to be done with it. Margaret sent me everything: complaint records, the drainage report, photos, the contractor's letter, documentation gathered and never used, sitting in a box in their garage in Shreveport. Now I had 2 properties, a decade of behavior and a permit fraud violation that turned a fence dispute into something with real teeth. I didn't go to Dale. I went to Linda, his wife, on a Saturday morning when his truck wasn't in the driveway. I knocked, stood on her porch, and told her calmly what I had: the survey, the false permit coordinates, the Beaumont file, all of it going to James Ellison on Monday. Linda looked down at the survey in my hands for a long moment. "He told me you were the problem." I know he did. She looked up. Something shifted in her face, not surprise exactly. More like a woman recognizing a story she'd been told before, from the other direction. I didn't need to say anything else. When Dale came home that afternoon, I could hear them through the fence, his voice getting louder, hers staying flat and even, the tone of a woman who's just been handed something she intends to use on her own timeline. The parish revoked Dale's fence permit within 2 weeks, once the false coordinates were confirmed against the original plat. He was ordered to remove the fence at his own expense within 30 days or face daily fines. He removed it in 3 weeks. The harassment filing, built on my records combined with the Beaumont documentation, settled with a formal agreement requiring Dale to submit documented evidence with any future complaint against my property handed to both the parish and my attorney simultaneously. It ended his ability to use the complaint system as a weapon, because now every complaint he filed came back to me with his name on it. My rose bushes came back once the fence was down. 2 of the 3 recovered fully. The third Didn't the concrete footing had damaged the root system beyond saving? Dale filed one more noise complaint in June. He submitted nothing. Because there was nothing to submit, I'd had friends over for dinner. Inside. Windows closed. Dismissed automatically. Flagged as a potential violation of the settlement order. I haven't heard from him since. Margaret Beaumont sent me a card in July. She said she'd thought about that house every year since they left. The way you think about something you loved that someone else ruined. She said she was glad somebody finally made him account for it. I planted a new rosebush where the third one had been. Different variety one my mother never grew. One that's entirely mine. It's doing well. Dale spent 11 years betting that neighbors get tired and leave. He picked the wrong librarian. We don't throw things away. We file them, date them, and wait for the moment they matter. The fence came down in 21 days.